It was a thing.
And you resisted, as you point out, and then you write about why you finally decided.
Right.
The cameras roll, capturing a moment of sheer desperation. A character is in agony, the result of a secret back-alley operation gone horribly wrong. This wasn't a scene of joyous dancing. It was a gritty, life-or-death situation that filmmakers fought to keep in the movie. When Dirty Dancing first aired on television, this entire sequence was systematically erased, deemed too shocking for family audiences. Viewers were shown a censored version of the film for years, never knowing that the movie's most powerful and dangerous message had been completely stripped away, leaving a massive hole in the story. The plot that shocked a nation. In 1987, Dirty Dancing captured the hearts of millions with its dreamy summer romance and electric choreography. It was the story of Frances Baby Houseman, a naive teenager who falls for the resort's dance instructor, Johnny Castle. On the surface, it was a perfect feel-good movie, but the thing nobody tells you is that the entire plot is driven by a dark, controversial secret that was so shocking for its time, it was systematically scrubbed from television broadcasts for years. The core of the story isn't just about love and dancing, it's about a dangerous, illegal medical procedure. This was the scene that got the movie effectively banned from network television in its complete form. You see, the entire reason Baby gets involved with Johnny in the first place is to help his dance partner, Penny Johnson. Penny is facing a desperate situation after becoming pregnant. With no safe or legal options available to her in 1963, she schedules a back-alley operation with a man described as a butcher. The procedure is botched, leaving Penny in agonizing pain and at risk of dying. It's this gritty, terrifying event that forces Baby to ask her father, a doctor, for help, ultimately exposing her secret relationship with the staff at Kellerman's resort. To put it mildly, this was not your typical teen movie subplot. The writer, Eleanor Bergstein, based the story on her own experiences and memories from the era. She insisted that this storyline was non-negotiable. For her, Dirty Dancing was not just a romance. It was a statement about the dangerous reality women faced before safe medical care was an option. The most shocking fact is how much pushback she received. Potential sponsors for the film took one look at the script and ran for the hills. One major company, Clearasil, had been in talks to fund the movie, but they pulled out the moment they learned about the controversial storyline. They wanted their brand associated with wholesome teen stories, not dangerous, illegal operations. The studio, Vestron Pictures, was a small independent company, and losing a major sponsor was a massive blow. Executives grew incredibly nervous. They begged Bergstein to remove the plot, suggesting that Penny could have gotten into a car accident or suffered a sports injury instead. But Bergstein refused to budge. She famously told them, "Well, then there's no movie." She knew that without this storyline, Baby's journey from a passive girl into a courageous woman made no sense. Johnny's protectiveness and Baby's sacrifice would have no weight. What many overlooked is the bravery it took to include this at all. In the 1980s, during a politically conservative era, tackling such a subject head-on in a mainstream film was virtually unheard of. It was a massive gamble. The filmmakers were risking everything on the belief that audiences could handle a serious, real-world issue inside their summer romance fantasy. When the movie was finally released, the gamble paid off in theaters. But when it came time to sell the film to network television, the old fears resurfaced. Networks were terrified of audience complaints and sponsor boycotts. So, in many broadcasts, the entire subplot was either heavily edited or completely removed, leaving a confusing and nonsensical plot for viewers at home. A story with a massive hole in it was all they were allowed to see. Hollywood's biggest underdog. Long before the controversy over its central theme, Dirty Dancing was already a project many in Hollywood believed was doomed. It was a low-budget film from a fledgling studio, and every step of its creation was a battle. The struggle began with a title that, to put it mildly, made executives cringe. When writer Eleanor Bergstein pitched the name Dirty Dancing, studio heads were horrified. They thought it sounded like an adult film and were convinced it would alienate the very audience they needed. For months they tried to change it, suggesting laughably bad alternatives like I Was a Teenage Mambo Queen. Even Patrick Swayze, the film's star, hated the title and pleaded with the producers to find something else. But they held firm, betting that the provocative name would create curiosity, not condemnation. Then came the casting, which was its own saga of what-ifs. Before Patrick Swayze embodied the role of Johnny Castle, the part was nearly given to Billy Zane. Zane had the handsome, brooding look, but there was one major problem. He couldn't dance. His screen tests with Jennifer Grey were reportedly awkward and lacked any of the fire needed to sell the romance. The chemistry just wasn't there. After Zane was out, the producers approached Val Kilmer, who was a rising star at the time. He immediately turned it down, not interested in a dancing movie. With time running out, the casting directors were getting desperate. They needed an actor who could not only act, but also had the grace and training of a professional dancer, a combination that is incredibly rare in Hollywood. Enter Patrick Swayze. He was a trained ballet dancer with a rugged edge, but his on-screen relationship with Jennifer Grey was complicated from the start. They had worked together before on the film Red Dawn and had not gotten along. Grey found Swayze to be demanding, while he saw her as overly emotional. She was hesitant to work with him again, and it took a lot of convincing to even get them in a room for a chemistry test. But when they danced together, something undeniable happened. The tension between them translated into a fiery, magnetic energy on camera. The producers realized their real-life friction was the secret ingredient that could make the on-screen romance feel authentic. It was a huge risk, but they cast them anyway, hoping their explosive dynamic wouldn't tear the production apart. You can see this everywhere in the film. The conflict was real. With a controversial title, two leads who had a history of clashing, and a script centered on a taboo subject, the studio had very little faith in the movie's success. The final test screenings were a disaster. Audiences were confused, and one producer famously suggested they should burn the negative and collect the insurance money. The studio planned to release it in theaters for a single weekend, and then rush it to home video to cut their losses. No one, not the actors, not the producers, not the studio, believed Dirty Dancing would ever become a hit. They were about to be proven wrong in the biggest way imaginable. Surviving the shoot. The on-screen story of Dirty Dancing depicts a warm, idyllic summer at a resort in the Catskill Mountains. The reality of filming it, however, was a brutal endurance test that pushed the cast and crew to their physical and emotional limits. The thing nobody tells you is that the beautiful romance you see was filmed amidst sweltering heat, freezing cold, and constant physical pain. The set was less of a summer camp and more of a battlefield. Most of the filming took place in Virginia and North Carolina during a strange weather season. For the famous lake scene, where Johnny lifts baby gracefully into the air, the actors were filming in late October. The water was a bone-chilling 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Jennifer Grey described the experience as horrifyingly cold, stating she could barely feel her limbs. Patrick Swayze's lips turned blue between takes. There were no close-ups filmed for that scene because the actors were visibly freezing and miserable, their bodies shaking uncontrollably. It was the opposite of the romantic, warm moment it appeared to be. When they weren't freezing in the lake, they were suffering in oppressive heat. Interior scenes were shot in cabins with no air conditioning during a heat wave, where temperatures soared past 100 degrees. The air was so thick with humidity that cameras would fog up. In one instance, Paula Truman, the actress playing Mrs. Schumacher, collapsed from heat exhaustion and had to be treated by medics. The cast was constantly battling the elements just to get through a scene. What many overlooked was the immense physical toll the dancing took on Patrick Swayze. He was a professional, but he was also dancing with a serious knee injury that he had sustained years earlier. The demanding choreography, especially the log balancing scene, put enormous pressure on his already damaged joint. He was in constant, agonizing pain, but refused to let it show on camera. In his autobiography, Swayze revealed that he felt a searing pain every time he had to perform a lift or a jump. He delayed a necessary surgery to finish the film, pouring his real-life struggle into Johnny Castle's stoic and tough exterior. The grimace of pain you might see on his face wasn't always acting. And you can see this everywhere. even in the landscape. The story is set in the summer, but because they were filming in the autumn, the leaves on the trees were turning brown and yellow. To maintain the illusion of summer, the set crew had the painstaking job of spray painting hundreds of leaves green. It was a bizarre, almost comical solution to a serious production problem. This constant struggle against the weather, against injuries, against the calendar itself, created an undercurrent of raw tension that surprisingly helped the film. The exhaustion and frustration were real, and that authenticity bled into the performances, making the characters' struggles feel even more genuine. But some of the film's most iconic moments weren't born from struggle, but from pure accident, capturing lightning in a bottle. The production of Dirty Dancing is legendary for being a grueling battle against budgets, weather, and egos. Yet, out of this cinematic crucible, some of the film's most beloved and iconic moments were forged not in the screenwriter's study, but in the chaotic crucible of spontaneous reality. They were unscripted, unplanned, and often unwanted accidents that a visionary director was wise enough to capture. These flashes of pure, unfiltered humanity gave the film its enduring heart and soul, proving that sometimes the greatest scenes are the ones no one ever wrote down. Many fans are utterly devoted to the iconic crawling scene set to Mickey and Sylvia's Love is Strange. In it, Baby and Johnny are ostensibly rehearsing, but the session devolves into them lip-syncing and crawling toward each other on the floor in a moment of playful, uninhibited silliness. This entire sequence was a phantom in the script. Actors Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey, exhausted and frayed by the relentless shooting schedule, were simply warming up and goofing around between takes to blow off steam. They were seeking a moment of joy amidst the drudgery. The director, Emile Ardolino, witnessed the genuine, light-hearted chemistry unfolding and, with a stroke of genius, quietly told the cameraman to keep rolling. He captured the entire thing without their knowledge. When they saw the footage later, they realized this accidental interlude of fun was more charming and authentic than anything they could have planned. It perfectly encapsulated the characters slowly dismantling their defenses and was immediately enshrined in the final cut. An even more famous example, steeped in the film's lore, is the rehearsal scene where Johnny runs his hand down Baby's arm, and she erupts into uncontrollable giggles. Her laughter wasn't a performance choice. Jennifer Grey was genuinely, profoundly ticklish, and she couldn't suppress her laughter each time Swayze's fingers grazed her skin. For Swayze, a disciplined professional dancer who saw rehearsal as sacred, her giggling felt unprofessional and shattered the scene's focus. His visible frustration on screen is completely real. He was authentically annoyed that they had to reset for take after take. For a time, the filmmakers considered the footage a wash, a failure caused by an actress who couldn't remain in character. However, upon reviewing the takes in the editing room, they unearthed something extraordinary. The dynamic between Grey's genuine, irrepressible laughter and Swayze's real, simmering frustration was electric. It was a perfect, unintentional mirror of the awkward, funny, and tense relationship between the polished dance instructor Johnny and his clumsy, earnest student Baby. It was more real than any scripted dialogue could ever be. What began as a ruined take became one of the most honest and memorable scenes in the entire movie. It's here that a wilder theory emerges. This wasn't just a happy accident, but a moment of method acting by osmosis. The real-life friction between the two leads, their clashing work styles and personalities, became an unintentional tool. They didn't have to act the tension, they were living it, and the camera was simply documenting the truth of their relationship, disguised as fiction. This pattern of reality bleeding into the film extends beyond playful moments. Consider the iconic lift in the lake. The scene was filmed in October in North Carolina, and the water was dangerously, painfully cold. There were no stunt doubles, and the pained, breathless looks on the actors' faces were not manufactured. It was the genuine physiological shock of plunging into a nearly freezing lake. Some whisper that the entire production was under a strange curse of Kellerman's, where the filming locations themselves seemed to conspire against the cast and crew through freak weather and on-set maladies. Yet this curse perversely blessed the film, forcing visceral, authentic reactions that no amount of training could replicate. They tried to hide the film's true message, but its power couldn't be erased. Was it right to censor a story to make it more family-friendly? Like and subscribe for more hidden truths.